Session. Our session is titled Building Rural Communities Resilience to Climate Change, and this is session 11551. And our presenters today is Dr. Brilliant Beja, Prof. Nebo Jovanovic, myself, and Mr. Simul Sejoshika. All of us are from South Africa, and we are all working on a program known as the Giyani Local Scale Climate Resilience Program. This is a program that is being piloted in the Giyani area. This is in Limpopo in South Africa. And in this program, we're really trying to demonstrate three things: how to institutionalize alternative models to water services delivery, how to support also rural communities with alternative energy supply, but really also to strengthen and build local government to be receptive of these alternative models, and ultimately to build a sustainable enterprise development or local economic development in order to ensure that the cooperatives that we are supporting and the businesses in the areas of Limpopo are able to sustain themselves using the services that this program has supported in upgrading. So the program is flighted up there. We will start with Dr. Brilliant Beja, who will give us a context about the climate that is in Giyani, but he will start fairly high level, giving us a bit of presentation on the kind of climate that you deal with in the world, in the region, and specifically to the country. Then I'll come in and do a very brief presentation about how we have gone about in this program to build local resilience. Then Prof will come in and look at technical solutions. Maybe let me finish first with the program before you share, Brilliant. Technical solutions to secure water supplies to help build stability and peace. And the last presentation we will take from Sejo Shika, who will give us performance assessment and capacity building to ensure sustainability. Then we will open up a little bit for questions and discussions. As colleagues can see, this program is not our time is not very long, it's fairly limited. So we would really plead with you to allow us to go through all the presentations, and then you can ask questions at the end of the session. But if you think you're going to leave a little bit early or you might forget your question, please feel free to use the chat space and we would take the questions as they come from there. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy the session. Over to you, Brilliant. Stop sharing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I will just briefly talk about the climate change in a global, regional, country, and local context, the premise in which justified our current intervention. And this is how it will look like. Climate change impacts on water resources and development climate change impacts water resources and development differently across the globe. And we have seen a record increase in natural disasters and extreme weather events. This bears significant implications to sustaining different water-dependent sectors, and therefore each sector has a significant role to play in improving the adaptive capacity and increasing the resilience to climate change. Within this context, research continuously contributes to planning and building resilience of these affected sectors to deal with the consequences of climate change. At global level, this is how the sixth assessment report projected how the future would look like, particularly in terms of precipitation and temperature, and looking at how we deal and approach with the climate change, whether we take the route for sustainability or we live a business as usual, which will contribute to increasing emissions, which will worsen the situation. So we see the global perspective in terms of precipitation. Our region, Southern Africa, is all different scenarios, shows a definite projected decline in precipitation, and hence we have no option but to bring interventions that will help to increase the resilience. If you look at the temperature as well, Africa is projected to warm, while South Africa shows a signal which demonstrates the intensity. And then if we go to the Southern Africa and South Africa level, these drastic temperatures are further defined by different models which agree at both low mitigation and high mitigation scenario. And this will bring forth the recurrence of heat waves, which will negatively affect different subsectors: agriculture, water security, water supply, different land uses, and then the precipitation, substantial declines in rainfall, which will give rise to multi-year droughts, up to 4 years of sequential droughts, which will have much severe impact to water security of our rural communities and most production zones within the region. And we more extreme events are projected to increase in terms of wherever you after you've experienced the drought, then you're followed by extreme floods, which might be difficult to cope. And what does this say to us in terms of resilience? If you look for what is projected in terms of floods, it is important to consider adaptive infrastructural response, wherein, if possible, the different areas can begin investing in infrastructure that will capture excessive floods, so that then we reduce the impact of these floods. It can, where the geology allows, it can be underground infrastructure and also surface infrastructure, so that that water is even available during the dry season. And if you look at the dry seasons, it gives us an opportunity for different areas within South Africa to demarcate and determine how dry areas affect different areas and how wet season affect different areas. Then we're able to plan for both rain-fed and irrigated in agriculture appropriately. And then you go down to a local scale, catchment scale, wherein then we use the satellite images to diagnose the actual impacts on the ground and what type of intervention and responses are required. So this demonstrates 3 different catchments in South Africa, including Letaba, where Giyani is. And then this is the detail wherein we can demonstrate the use of this Earth observation for both impact on water quantity and water quality. So with this information available now, it gives us leverage to enhance resilience and adaptive capacity, wherein particularly we can target, because we have seen how climate change is going to affect different regions in areas, areas in the country, so we can target regional local scale up approach wherein we can protect our water resources, build adaptive capacity, local scale adaptation, which will be demonstrated in the next presentation, and risk reduction and response to extremes. So this is done in a detailed way where we have characterized the risks. Then we develop specific guidelines to direct on how interventions should be done to increase sustainability. So this is just another example for heat waves across the whole country, which local districts will be affected and how they will be affected, then how can interventions be directed. So in brief, this is how research guides our interventions. And in conclusion, changes and shifts in climate brings consequences on livelihoods and development. Proactive planning is a prerequisite for risk reduction and operational response. It is important to integrate climate change adaptation and response in our routines daily and regularly. This will contribute towards building resilience and preparedness. And the next presentations will demonstrate on how such interventions are implemented on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Peja. Let me just say that Dr. Peja is a research manager at the Water Research Commission, and he's one of the people who conceptualized this program, and even the one before where we were really looking at the multiple use water services project. So this program is a continuation of that. So thanks for that concise background information about the type of climate in the region, but specifically in Letaba, where we are actually piloting this program. Now, colleagues, we are going to move on, and we are now going to tell you specifically about this program, the Giyani Local Scale Climate Resilience Program. And this is a program funded by the Government of Flanders. It is led by the Water Research Commission as the implementing agent, but we also work with other institutions. For example, we work with 2 local NGOs, non-governmental organizations, which is Tsogang Water and Sanitation. The second one is the Association for Water and Rural Development, which is AWARD. And then we work with the University of the Western Cape, which is really leading the research component to the program. And AWARD specifically is looking at how do you institutionalize these models, how you strengthen local government, and Tsogang specifically on how you provide technical support to communities who are receiving these infrastructure development, as well as ensuring that they build capacities of this NGO, of the communities to be able to respond and work with the infrastructure that have been provided. And for our local economic development, we have one of Water Research Commission's staff member, Ms. Zanele Sifunza, who drives the local enterprise development, working with the entrepreneurs, the enterprises, the cooperatives, ensuring that they have the right skills to be able to run effective, sustainable businesses using the services or the improved infrastructure that would have been provided in this program. Now, colleagues, I'm quickly going to take you through the background to this program so that you can get a sense of what is it that we are doing in this program. Can people see my presentation?
No, we can't.
Oh, okay. Let me try again. William?
Yes.
Seem to be struggling to show my presentation. I'm hitting share, but it don't share.
Let's see. Do you see anything when you click on share?
It shows that it's sharing, but not on my part. I've clicked multiple participants can share, but nothing. Anybody to assist?
Let's see if we try like this, maybe. If you try once again now, maybe.
Okay, I think we might have one.
Perfect.
Thank you, William. Great. Thank you very much. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's carry on. My presentation, let me minimize this so that you can see. I'm just going to map out the strategies we have adopted in this program to building resilience in Giyani. What you have up there is actually the framework that we have followed in terms of how do you engage communities, how do you ensure that they are on board, which is all about inclusion and participation. Typically, this is a project, a cycle that we would follow. The only difference is that it's the intentional inclusion of communities at every stage of the project cycle, whether it is at the beginning, which is really where we engage communities and other stakeholders, including municipalities and tribal authorities or local authorities. And at the second step, it's about how together with the communities, we diagnose the problem that they are facing. Specifically in this instance, it would be about understanding what their water challenges are and to a greater extent, where the sources are, what are the quality of their water and so on. And when we come to solutions, it's actually just facilitating the discussions, but solutions are actually coming up from communities themselves. They would indicate bringing into the discussion their own knowledge about what has worked before, what has been the limitations, and so on, all the way until we get to step 6, which is really also including communities in the discussion about where are their skills gaps, what money should be used for which infrastructure, what do they have, what is it that they don't have, what can they contribute in terms of labor, in terms of their own wisdom. But this should not exclude, for example, if we have to pay stipends here and there for them to be able to undertake some of the work. But the principle here is to ensure always that communities are part of the solution than outsiders as ourselves coming in to impose the solutions. For this program, this is how we have worked with everyone who's at the local level, including our municipalities, including the tribal authorities, and so on. And our approach has been that we would firstly start off by approaching individuals, really sharing what the program is all about, then we move to looking at the group of stakeholders doing the same thing and really getting a discussion going on there. And as a second step, when we are building a collaborative network phase, that's when now we are having to engage the different sector stakeholders. For example, we can call meetings and speak specifically to cooperatives or subsistence farmers, or we can call a meeting to speak specifically to everyone who is working with sanitation or with water. And then we move on and have really bigger workshops where these include everyone in the local area. And this is to promote more engagements and be able to also open a dialogue between the different sectors that are there in the community. We also have what we call a district development model, which is where actually all the stakeholders at the local level come and make an input. And this is one of the mechanisms that also local government or municipalities use to engage the locals in ensuring that their needs are hit, but in ensuring that there is collaboration among stakeholders and there is sharing of ideas and wisdom among the stakeholders at the local level. When it comes to building capacity, we have about 5 steps that we follow in this program. And as colleagues can see there, we start very intentionally at the individual level, understanding what are their needs, what are the understanding, what are the skill sets at that local level, working specifically in most cases to people who are operating and maintaining the systems like boreholes, but also working with other stakeholders who are involved in the operation and maintenance of the water systems. Different training workshops are held there in the local area to ensure that the understanding of multiple use water services is the same, is shared on, and also to enhance our own understanding how MUS is understood at the local level. And as I mentioned in my opening as well, to really get to a point of understanding what are the business opportunities in Giyani, how do these operate, but also what are the training needs, the skill sets that are required by the enterprises in that local area. Then the second step, we then look at how do systems and organization work there? What are the capacity requirements that are needed there? We're looking at community self-organization, their own way, how they manage conflict, how do they fund system, how do they organize themselves to be able to raise funds, to maintain the systems that are there, and also to really see whether our own M&E systems and reporting are aligned to the way that communities work. Step 3 is looking at the tools, infrastructure, and enablers. What is there? What are we bringing in? What systems can work there? And are they aligned to the local climate? Or do we need to make some adjustments? And then the fourth step is about how we bring everybody else together to really share in their resources, to share in their own efforts so that we minimize duplication. And in there, that's where we're starting to see in terms of the funeral schemes that are there, the saving associations that are there, how are they organized, and can they all come together to contribute so that the systems that have been provided are able to last them a little bit longer. Then the final step is about how is the learning shared amongst all the stakeholders at the local level. And also in there, also it's building their understanding, their capacities about the system that would have been implemented there, whether it's solar, whether it is water, and when it comes to businesses, strengthening their understanding of how to run successful businesses, whether it's from registration to developing business plans and so on. And these are some of the guidelines or documents that we have developed in this program to be able to really strengthen local capacities in Giyani. As colleagues will see, there are different guidelines there that speak to the institutions that are there. Some speak directly to communities. For example, if you look at Mbedle, that guideline really is a way that the community of Mbedle can start to understand how a solar system works. This is how you repair it. This is how you ensure that it's running on a daily basis. And when we look at the policy briefs, it's really documents that are speaking specifically to local government. What is it? What is needed? What are we learning from this program? Do we need a policy revision given the studies or the lessons that we are pulling from this program? And as I have said, colleagues, the whole intent of us working in Giyani, ultimately we want to get to improved livelihoods. And for us in this program, it was about diversifying the water sources that are there, making improvements so that water is not only for consumption, but is there also for productive use, so that the enterprises are able to thrive, they're able to access more markets, they're able to produce for themselves, and they're able to produce for their local communities. But also when you look at water for consumption, we were looking at how you manage your water better, how you manage quality, how you really ensure that the management of water is not wasteful, but is of beneficial importance to everyone. The little bit that we are having is able to last us longer. The energy, particularly, our program started when South Africa was going through quite a lot as a country when it comes to energy provision. And it used to affect communities, particularly rural communities, in a very negative way. The small businesses used to be impacted in the most negative way, where if there is downtime because of load shedding, it meant that there was no water for drinking, there was no water for productive use, which really affected the livelihoods of communities. So this program's introduction of alternative energy supply in terms of solar was trying to mitigate all of that. And in terms of food, it's how we really were working with cooperatives to ensure that they are implementing climate smart technologies to be able to deal with the impacts of climate change. And these are the improvements or some of the infrastructure improvements that we have done in the communities: water storage facilities, alternative energy supply, improvements when it comes to water supply like boreholes and so on. As the other presentations are coming, you'd be able to see further improvements that were done in this program. And then in terms of enterprise development, it meant that our colleague Zanele was working with cooperatives and local businesses to ensure that their businesses are sustainable, linking up to other networks in the area to ensure that they can access supply chain in those areas and they can sustain themselves. They are able to get support from government institutions that are tasked with ensuring that businesses run effectively. And this, colleagues, I think it's a short background in terms of what the program is all about. And now I'm going to open up this discussion. Rather, I'm going to hand over to Prof. Nebo, who will also share with us a little bit about what the program has done. And Prof. Nebo is a lecturer and a professor at the University of the Western Cape. And as I said, this is one of the partners in the program. Prof, over to you.
Thank you, convener. I have loaded a presentation. Can you see it?
It has come through, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Just go to the first slide and I'll try to enlarge it. Okay, is everything okay? Far can go. Okay, as it was well documented by Dr. Patch earlier, South Africa is a water-stressed country in predominantly arid, semi-arid, and we are hit quite hard by climatic changes. So in future, we expect more droughts and floods. And that causes impacts on the economy, on ecosystems and communities, and especially the poor communities are the most vulnerable to these climatic changes. In the study area of Giyani, we had a major drought in 2016-2017 that manifested with heat waves and extended periods without rainfall. And the result was crop losses and dams that dried out, dead cattle in the streets, and hardship to the communities. So the South African government has the intent to address some of these challenges. And in particular, in this program, we try to propose some interventions and implement them. We looked at alternative water sources. For example, river sand aquifers is something that's been utilized by local communities for centuries. Groundwater that is notoriously underutilized in South Africa. Then the multiple use water services or MUS, which is a decentralized water service provision system that fits well rural communities. And we also looked at solar-powered groundwater pumping systems, which are, I think, viable, especially in rural areas with a sparse population and where we have frequent droughts occurring. The context is very specific. Also, historically, in the country, we have a dual governance system of the elected and what we call traditional authorities that collaborate quite well. We have a dual agricultural system with both large commercial farms and smallholders. Between cities and rural areas, we have a sort of dual economy and even some dual cultural values. So the target for the interventions were especially rural areas to supply drinking water to population that doesn't have a reticulation system. So with an average of 3,000 people in small villages. And also what we call emerging farmers, which are small farmers that are aspiring to become commercial farmers in the near future. So we conducted first a feasibility study where we found that there is secure and reliable water supply in the area, especially from groundwater, but is limited in volume, in extent. Solar energy is abundant, so there is more than sufficient energy available that can be harvested. The water demand is quite high. If one, even if the minimum of 25 liters per capita per day is secured in areas with sparse population, that's a quite high demand on the infrastructure. So we did some technical and engineering feasibility to find that the systems are technically feasible and the water quality is generally fit for different uses. The socioeconomic feasibility indicated that there is a high capital investment that's required, especially for the infrastructure, but then lower operational costs. And generally, the communities have a positive perception towards new things, new technologies, and new interventions. But the capacity needs to be built. In other words, the communities need also to be equipped to operate and maintain the infrastructure. Using solar energy has low impacts on the environment, much lower than other sources of energy. The regulatory framework is more or less supportive in the country. We had to establish institutional arrangements with, especially with local government, and we conducted extensive stakeholder engagement, firstly to identify in this feasibility study potential pilot sites where we could implement these interventions. So the interventions were eventually implemented at 9 pilot sites. So it was basically 4 small villages and 5 emerging farmers, so small older farms, all in the area around Giyani, within the Giyani municipality. So from the feasibility study, we found that solar energy or the initial investment costs would pay off basically after 4 years, and after about 7 years, solar energy would become cheaper than grid electricity. Fossil fuels are not viable, so it's something that we should eliminate at inception. These are some of the water source quality tests that we conducted, both for the purpose of evaluating the fitness for drinking water and for agricultural use. Generally, the water is fit for agriculture. For drinking water, it's marginal. And in particular, there are at certain places elevated levels of nitrate and total organic carbon due to the presence of villages in nearby areas that don't have a reticulation system for sewage. So we proceeded with implementing building some of the infrastructure and implementing these interventions. So here on the slide, you can see the construction of erection of solar panels, construction of water storage tanks. We made provision for drip irrigation laterals, and also for pumps to pump water from boreholes. And the main outcomes after a couple of years since this infrastructure was implemented is that emerging farmers have generally increased the irrigated area and groundwater abstraction, but we didn't record any major drawdown of groundwater. But we'll have to continue monitoring, or rather the communities will continue monitoring as they were trained and equipped to do so. It was a very successful exercise, with some of the farms turning into, from being small farms into financially sustainable businesses. At the other sites that we equipped for drinking water supply, we also supplied infrastructure in terms of solar panels, groundwater pumps, then storage facilities. We call them JoJo tanks. It's basically plastic tanks for storing water. And because of the variable water quality, we installed water treatment mini plants to purify water. And one of the main purposes of our participation to Stockholm Water Week is also to explore potential technologies for small-scale water treatment. We have tried and trusted large-scale technologies for large wastewater treatment plants, but we would like to explore more these mini plants, and I saw some interesting messages already in the chat box. So communities were also trained to monitor the water resource and other important variables in the system, and they were also familiarized with potential financing models that they would employ after the project ends and after the handover of the infrastructure to the community is completed. Obviously, in the last couple of years, we have also tested the performance of these systems, and that's the topic of the next talk by Mr. Shika.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much for the presentation. Colleagues, please feel free to drop questions in the chat group. And as Prof has said, some of the things that we will look at is what else are you doing in your countries that we can learn from. And if you are on site also, in Stockholm, please drop your details there. I'll be happy to come to your exhibition to come and see some of the stuff that you're doing. Or if you're presenting at another point, I'll be happy to join that session. Let me give an opportunity now to Mr. Shika Sejo, who is Prof's student, and he's looking at performance assessment and capacity building to ensure sustainability. Then after Mr. Shika, we will then take questions from.
All right. Thank you so much. Greetings to the House at large. Sergio Shika, I'm from the University of the Western Cape. So I'll be taking you through the performance assessment and capacity building of the solar power groundwater pumping system. So this is just a brief outline. I'm just going to go through some aims and objectives, some of the performance indicators that we used in order to check the performance of these systems, and then we're going to have like one or two of the site performance, and then we're going to go through one capacity building mechanism to be placed. So with regards to the aim, it was just to assess the performance of the systems at the farms and also the village sites. And then the corresponding objectives were to check how efficient the water abstraction was, and also checking the longevity and the durability of the power supply from the solar panels themselves, and also monitoring over time the water quality at the sites, and then seeing what are the socioeconomic benefits for both the farms and also village sites. So in this table, basically are the performance assessments that we had taken in consideration. As you can see, there's weather, there's water abstraction, there's power supply, there's water supply, there's water quality, and then there's hourly system performance and the socioeconomic aspects of it, and the corresponding methods and frequency of measurements were also tabulated in this table. So this is how we went about really collecting the data that will inform the performance of the systems. So with regards to the site performance, we're going to go a bit in detail on one farm site and basically one village site, just to see like how much data we've been collecting over time. So the first site that we're going to talk about is Matena Agriculture Cooperative. So basically they usually grow okra, spinach, mustard spinach, also tomatoes and sweet potatoes, right? So with regards to one of the indicators that we're looking at, which was depth to groundwater. So what you're looking at on the left-hand side is depth to groundwater data, so static groundwater level, and it has remained very steady throughout since last year into this year also. So ranging in between 12 and 14 meters, and it remains quite steady throughout. And then with regards to the volume of water that has been pumped. Basically, the farm does not pump a whole lot of water. So as you can see, within the last year, they were really just below 15 cubic meters. And then this year, there is just a slight increase whereby they are reaching more towards the 20 to 30 cubic meters of water pumped daily. So with regards to that, we also have what is now corresponding in terms of power supply and the discharge rate. So the voltage on this side ranges a bit between 120 to 170, 180 at times volts. So from the panels themselves to power the pump. And the discharge rates, although they've had fluctuations depending on the time of day that measurement is taken and also the weather conditions. I think a point where we can really say there was a point of incident was around September last year over here, whereby there was a bit of a problem with the system itself. So hence that discharge rate declined over time up until a certain time where we had to troubleshoot and then resolve the matter with the pump itself. So hence why it's important to just have this data so we can troubleshoot. With regards to the on-site water quality, we have the pH, which has been ranging just between 6 and 8, which is still good for agricultural use and also drinking purposes on the site. The electric connectivity on the site has also been just below 1,000, really, and which is still good for agricultural use. So I think the water on this side has been really of good quality. So we conducted a hourly performance assessment, which basically sees how the system performs on an hourly basis based on whether the operational times at the farm or just the times that we're there in every hour, just to see how it performs in 2 seasons, which was in the summer and also in winter. So on the left is basically November, which is our summer, and this side, and then on the right is the performance of it, on hourly performance on in South Africa right now. So we just recently did this one. So it was just really interesting to see basically in terms of the difference in discharge rates hourly, that when we had taken the reading around 10 in summer, it was ranging around 100 and it was ranging 122 volts and the discharge rate was around 1.64. So basically you can see that in the winter months, it takes a bit longer for the system to really start pumping a very good steady amount of water out. And hence this also informed basically the farmers that they might need to start adjusting when they start pumping the system to a bit more further into the afternoon. So maybe around 12 onwards, because the system was really struggling to pump like in the early hours of the day due to like the sun coming out a bit later and not having enough. And so also like the accumulation of dust on the panel. So it was just basically good to see these comparisons and then just make more informed decisions on how to operate the system. So that's what we gained in terms of the hourly performance assessment. And basically, this is just basically a map out of how they were growing crops on this farm. So basically, you can see obviously all the different types of crops and when they actually grow them throughout the actual year. And you can see that spinach is very consistent. So it's a crop that really they grow majority of the year, and it is basically their most profitable crop on the site. And that is the one that has the highest yield in terms of production and also the most profitable in terms of revenue for this 2023 year. So we're going to move to basically a village site. So with regards to the village site itself, we have Mbete. So as you can see, there is storage facilities, which is consisting of 15 10,000 liter Jojo tanks. And also, it's also joined by a 5,000 liter Jojo tank, which is the one that will get the water that needs to be treated. So on sites that are village sites, the water then gets treated using the mini water treatment plant that can be used for drinking purposes and cooking, and then the other water is just water that has been extracted from the borehole itself. So with regards to our records that we have gotten from this particular site, you can see that the static groundwater level has also been remaining quite steady, just below, just less than 30 meters. And then with regards to the total volume pumped, the site has a tendency of just having high pumps, but it really ranges around 20 to 30 cubic meters consistently. And also those slight fluctuations is because it reaches a point whereby all the storage facilities are filled, and then they just basically make use of them, and then you just fill the ones that are depleted over time. Hence, the fluctuations in how much water they pump daily. So with regards to the voltage, it's quite a good voltage, and it has been sustained throughout the past year or so, and with just slight increases currently. So with regards to the amount of incoming voltage from the panels themselves, and the discharge has been quite good in terms of the site, just being a bit over 1 liter per second, and also ranging a bit higher, but then 1.5 liters per second, which is very good for a pump that's the 2.2 kilowatt pump. And with regards to the water quality at the site, the water quality is just below 8, but it ranges it does fluctuate over time, but this is basically the readings that we've been able to get. And also electrical connectivity has been a bit high with regards to reaching just over the 1,500 mark, hence why we have the treatment plan to try to bring it below this number. So with regards to the hourly performance, just checking the spectrum of it throughout the day at this particular site, we can see that in November, which is our summer, we could see that the voltage, despite obviously at 12 having a high, which is when they started the actual system pumping, you can see it remains quite consistent throughout the day with a voltage of 230 volts, really basically. And then with regards to in July, which was a winter season, you can see that it's just ranging between 228, and then it ranges back to 230. Slight fluctuations throughout the day as it's a winter day, and based on the conditions there in itself. So that's what we have for this particular site. And with regards to the socioeconomic benefits of this particular site, the system has been performing well and has been able to meet the requirements and grant access to water to the population, which is just over 1,250, and also neighboring villages that are nearby that are in need of use. So this is just basically some of the other data that we've collected from other sites, just where we have done also the same, which is Kusilela, also where we've done quite the same number of stuff. So we're going to move to the more capacity building component of things. So we just needed capacity building because at the end of the day, the operators and the farm managers are the ones that are going to be operating the system, and they need to have a good understanding of how the system works, and not only how the system works, but also how to optimize how they use the water resources and so on and so forth. So last year we had a capacity building, and this is basically the manual that we had used. And on the right is basically the contents of that particular manual. And the purpose of this was just to really introduce them to basically the system, how it works, and also just hear from basically the users how they feel about it and what would reassure them in terms of how we're going to make use of it. In conjunction to that, we also had an agricultural water skills manual. So this was more for the farm sites, basically exploring the different types of irrigation practices and so on and so forth. So other practices also there in this booklet, so that we can just have the best of both. So this is just some images of how we went about it, and also conducted some on-site training, basically to take them through how to take the measurements and how to monitor changes in depth of groundwater over time, how to read it, and how to know when the reading has been taken, how to read it, and how to record the measurements. We also then went through the handheld EC pH meter, just explaining how it works and what the certain values mean, when is it high, when is it low, and what should happen if they have a high and low number. So we had another capacity building this year, and the main purpose behind this capacity building was to ensure that they are able to interpret the information. So making use of the data that we have basically recorded over time, and then allowing them to be able to interpret. So it was a main key focus on interpretation, and also just a platform for us to hear how have they engaged with the system and what have they learned over time in terms of that. So these are the contents of the manual, and the only thing that we added was a component about water purification in this regard. So we had this as basically one of the activities we had. So hydrograph based on like rainfall and what that means for everyone that is in a village, but what does that mean also for a farmer? And they were the ones that were giving us insights in terms of that. So some of the other materials that we had given was depth to groundwater charts, so that they can just measure weekly, basically, where is this depth to groundwater, and essentially, is it at a point where it's going to be of concern, or is it being consistent over time, so that they can also have that visual graphic understanding of basically what is going on with regards to depth to groundwater. So hence, focusing more on interpretation. And then with regards to the lessons learned, so we have really learned quite a few lessons as a project, and we have understood that as much as this intervention has been as a form of urgent intervention, but there's really no regret. And I think that the villages have learned a lot and the farmers have learned a lot. And a lot of small businesses really can benefit, and they can come up from just being able to use water a bit more smarter now that they have the resource. And usually when they have more water, they're able to have basically increased crop productivity and so on and so forth. And we have also learned that innovations such as this one takes quite a long time to really be fully transferred. And as much as water is a resource that needs to be, it's limited, we need to basically monitor long-term these changes, because yes, we have kind of monitored them over a certain period of time, but they need to be a continuous monitoring of basically the groundwater levels and the pH and also the performance of the system as a whole. So it's financially viable, and basically we just need to foster that ownership. And basically we have learned that expectations might be high from the stakeholders that we have worked with, but basically having that co-management can just make it a bit more good. And yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergio. I'm sorry, now I have to rush you through. Abel, I hope this answers your question. I would have liked Prof to say a little bit more about the sand river abstraction method, but we've run out of time. Maybe Prof can quickly type that as another adaptive way we were hoping to pilot in the area, to really take into account other methods to build local resilience. Colleagues, let me thank you very much for joining this session. I know that generally they would not allow us to go over beyond 1 o'clock, but maybe before the session close, we appreciate your time in this session, and we hope that with the email addresses that have been flagged, you'd be able to get in touch with the project. Later this year, we will also be launching our website, and we hope that you'll be able to do that. In the meantime, you can visit www.wrc.org.za to be able to get in touch with me, and I will share further information. Let me also thank the presenters of this session, Dr. Brilliant Pecha, Prof. Nebo, as well as Sergio, for coming in and to share with you what they have learned in this program. I see we have a little bit of time, a minute or two. If there's any question, can I open up for a minute and we hear from you as the audience? Is there any other question? I'm not seeing questions. Prof, do you want to say a little bit about the Sandwater River abstraction, maybe? Just to amplify on Abel's question.
Yes, I think you put a very good question because I think since the inception, since the start of this action, we had talks with communities, so community engagement, stakeholder engagement, and many of the decisions on where to establish the infrastructure, for example, and which borehole to use were actually based on the decision from the communities. I think there is potential for use of sand river water, so water that is contained in the lower sand of non-perennial rivers. The community has been doing that for probably for centuries. So it's a well-known source of water, well-known source of water by indigenous knowledge. And the interesting thing is that it's water that's also very clean because it comes directly from recharge via rainfall. So it's water that's completely uncontaminated. It's almost the quality of rainwater. And that's a very good potential to sustain communities during periods of drought, and something that we should explore more in the future. We also consider the possibility also of sand dams, so to barrage some of these water in the sandy aquifers to collect it basically before it outflows out of the catchment. So there are, in principle, a lot of opportunities where one, by engaging with the community, can actually materialize these opportunities for better livelihood.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much for that response. I hope, Abel, this gets you to understand few of the things that are possible. And please, if you'd like to engage us further on this, we would be happy to get an email from you, and you can speak to Prof or myself and the other team members. Colleagues, I think it's 1 o'clock on the dot. We appreciate your participation in this session. Thank you very much. Those who are on site, we hope to see you. I'll do a walkabout there, and everybody who has contributed in terms of question and sharing their knowledge, the team really appreciates it. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks, colleagues. Goodbye.
Goodbye, thanks.